Now, a surge in consumer demand for honey, in particular Manuka honey, has brought a welcome boost to prospects for one of the country's largest producers, coming on the heels of a good harvest season. The strong demand experienced in mid-March by Comvita for its propolis and Manuka honey products resulted in an online sales growth of 70% during the first 10 days of March. This had done much to offset the losses experienced in retail sales and, of course, the major drop in tourists purchasing it here in New Zealand and leaving with suitcases full. John Rawcliffe, spokesman for the Unique Manuka Factor Honey Association, and joins us now. John, has COVID been the big game changer for Manuka honey? Is it just really taking it to another level from where we were prior COVID?
The demand has always been there for the Manuka honey industry. And for those selling genuine Manuka honey, they had no problem selling this honey. But this obviously what has happened is accelerated that demand and intensified it. So that's probably the way I see why the demand has gone up. People have always known its values, always known its position. This has intensified it.
So what about the manufacturing protocols of COVID? Has that affected supply chains?
It has. The industry has worked very, very well with the ministry to ensure under level 4 that as an essential service they could carry on doing business. The big problem was, how to get it to market and how to make it happen in that space. The price and the problems of getting it exported has gone up considerably, but those going B2B, business to business, are doing well. They've been able to get it to the door of the distributor. The distributor knows who they are directly. They've been able to do that, or again, the price and the problems of doing it has actually increased. So yeah, they've been able to get it out there to market and work through the issues.
Of course, in terms of the consumer demand, as we were speaking there, and of course earlier, Ian Proudfoot was on Sarah's Country the other day, John, and he was explaining, of course, consumers' demand to help build immunity in this fear of keeping well through something like a pandemic. Is that really underpinning the demand as well?
From the consumer perspective, yes, they're saying, as I said previously, they recognise the value of this honey. There is this pandemic, and they're saying, well, as part of my program, I will take this honey, and that's the way it's linked. There are, it's been a great demand. There is the demand. We've had a good season. There is demand. We've been able to get it to market, but we need to look ahead from that. We need to look ahead 4 months. The discretionary spend overseas is going to get very questionable. When you've got a choice of like-minded products and you're under price pressure, you turn around and choose something that is slightly less price, assuming it's going to be the same thing. So the industry actually needs to think 3-4 months ahead at this point and go, okay, what are we doing to truly differentiate, to make sure the consumer's got obvious, clear choices over this is Manuka honey. It has its qualities, a rating system that's meaningful to why I purchase it. So the industry is thinking 3 or 4 months ahead at the moment to say how it does that, like protecting the term Manuka honey, like ensuring its rating systems is meaningful, and ensuring its values and proposition is clean and clear to the consumer.
I can certainly see the boxing gloves coming off, and it already did. It was a year or so ago when MPI was obviously able to pump at least $6 million into our fight against, of course, our Aussie cousins to protect the brand of Manuka. How is that playing out in terms of trade protectionism around the UMF?
Well, that's playing out reasonably well. I mean, the industry, bluntly, for it to receive that money, had to get its act together. It's got its act together. There has been a Manuka Charitable Trust set up. The chair of that is Pita Tiffany, and they are there to be the holder of the intellectual property if we're successful in markets for this. So putting all that together, there's an operating company under a gentleman called Victor Goldsmith to be able to see the program through. So we've put these internal structures in place to ensure that we're able to protect this term, utilise the government's money. As I said before, it's very critical we get on and do that ASAP, because the consumer is going to look at alternative products, and the consumer will make a choice to say, this is something of a lesser price, but it's got that word or a rating system that's confusing. We have to differentiate. We have to meet the consumer's expectations. Doing this program to protect consumer Manuka honey has become super critical.
How do you get on when you've lost so many of your amazing honey ambassadors, the Asian tourists through Queenstown and back out the other end with a suitcase full of it? We don't have that trade that really underpins the understanding of what makes New Zealand UMF Manuka honey so special.
The demand overseas is there. There's always ways to get things to market. There's always, and that I think the industry is quite sharp and is able to say, okay, how do we get it to market? They've been able to work that through. So there's never been just one single channel. So getting it to market, the industry is very good at that. Again, the ministry's been supportive and helpful. There's been programs about how to get them at a co-pack onto a plane, to get many consignments onto a plane to one area. So yeah, they've been able to work that through. So the demand's there. They've been able to work how to get to market.
What are you looking forward to in the next phase of this chapter for Manuka honey, and being able to, put into work or see the success of some of the work that you've put into place around this protectionism?
Well, the first work started when the UMF Honey Association started to do what we called the Manuka ID project, where we went around the country and we literally acted like a bee and collected nectar. At that day, we knew what Manuka was. We used the great science of people like Dr. Terry Braggins, who analysed this honey and said, you've got 2,300 unique markers. You've got these dominant ones. We know what Manuka is. And once you know what it is, you can know what it does. And once you know what it is, you can protect it. So on that journey to really understand what it does and to protect it and provide that in a package and on a label that says to consumer, we know what it does, we know what it is, we can protect it, here it is here. So that's our next journey. So it's been that sort of way. We know what it is, we know what it can, now we can really discover what it does and we can protect it. Key to the program.
Now, I'm just interested on a personal level, John, because I like to obviously know the people behind the industry. What got you into a role like this yourself?
That's a very good question. You sort of fall into these roles. I've always had I used to work for a company where we did a lot of nutraceuticals, unique products that we could protect, add value to, and develop. So I've always been sort of involved in that. So, and then came along this honey industry, and it sort of fit the economic belief systems, my understandings, and Manuka is one of those key products from New Zealand. So I fell into it. It's been an interesting journey, to say the least. The industry is brilliant at times to work with, it's simple as that.
And you're based whereabouts?
I'm sitting here in St Heliers, which is great.
It's a good part of the country. He's a good friend of mine, might live around the road from you, Mr. Hamish Makai. Have you bumped into him?
He's a rather large chap that drinks coffee at La Vista around about 7:30 in the morning. I get back from the gym, and I sort of wave to him, and there's a group that always sort of gathers at about 7:30 in La Vista, and he's definitely one of them.
He puts his lycra on, pretends he's been cycling, and he's sitting with the cyclists at La Vista drinking coffee.
I don't look at that. I get away. That's a no-go area. Thank you.
Oh, I miss Auckland so much, John. Hey, that's John Rawcliffe. Thank you so much for joining us from the UMF Honey Association, talking about the, of course, boom that's happening in the midst of COVID outbreak with the values there, because consumers, of course, are focusing very heavily on the immunity at the moment. This is Sarah's Country.